and welcome. My name is James Miller, and I'm Anita Malik's husband. Before we get started, since this is a live broadcast, I want to make sure that everyone can hear. So if you're in the comments on Facebook or on YouTube, please just drop a hashtag live or hashtag replay. Let us know that you can actually hear and see the stream coming through. I'm really excited for tonight. We have a ton of special guests. I'm going to let our MC introduce them. But before, I want to just kick off tonight because over the last 3 years, I've seen Anita fight for what is right, no matter the cost to herself. And she stood tall and she's stood by her principles. And she's also got pretty great ethics. I couldn't be more proud to be in this fight with all of you, the community that we've so fondly referred to as the A-Team over the last 3 years. And this song that I'm going to share today as we kick off tonight is one that's really special to me, and I think speaks to the community that has been built up around this movement. When the path is unclear, when a new vision is needed, Anita knows that she has the vision, and that she's the one who can bring us forward, and there's more that we can do. So this song is called More. Through the highs and the lows, we got to learn to let things go. The time that we waste, we always make the same mistakes. And I found out all about you, what you've been through, and I'm tired too. There's more that you can do, more that you can do. If you always do what you've always done, you will always get what you've always got. And there's more that you can do, more that you can do. Don't back down. We've got to make this work somehow. Fears take over. We just need a love that makes you sober. And I found out all about you, what you've been through, and I'm tired too. There's more that you can do, more that you can do. If you always do what you've always done, you will always get what you've always got. And there's more that you can do, more that you can do. You've been chasing your dreams, the world is fast asleep, making you an endangered species, breaking into new ground. Your feet keep pushing down. There is so much more that you can do. And I found out all about you, what you've been through, and I'm tired too. There's more that you can do, more that you can do. If you always do what you've always done, you will always get what you've always got. And there's more that you can do, more that you can do. And I found out all about you, what you've been through, and I'm tired too. There's more that you can do, more that you can do.
James, that was beautiful. Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody, to the rally for you, our loyal and tireless supporters. You are the fuel behind Anita's movement for change in this district. My name is Nadia Mustafa, and I too am an Anita Malik supporter. I'm excited because today we're going to hear from supporters and leaders within our community about why they are ready to see Anita unseat David Schweikert and represent all of us in Arizona's 6th Congressional District. If you have any questions or comments, please put them into the comments on this live broadcast. Anita wants to hear from you, and she will get back to all questions either at the end or with individual follow-ups later. She's so good at that. This rally is for you because we are ready to flip this district together and create sweeping change. Everyone at Team Anita is incredibly grateful for the coalition of support we've seen, and now we are ready for a win. Tuesday is almost here. We need your help. It is just the first step to unseating Schweikert. Let's do this. I first want to introduce you to our first supporter, Brian Mecinas. Brian is a first-generation Mexican-American, first-generation college student at ASU, and a climate organizer with AZ Youth Climate Coalition, a statewide group of middle school, high school, and college students fighting for climate justice. He also serves on the advisory board of Climate Voice, and he is a young ambassador for the Smithsonian Institution's Latino Center. Brian? Brian, you're muted.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us today in support of our next Congresswoman from Arizona's 6th Congressional District, Anita Malik, who will unseat David Schweikert come this November. But first, we have to make it past this primary on Tuesday. I serve as an organizer for the Arizona Youth Climate Coalition, and I'm 19 years old, and I'm mad as hell. I'm mad because I've lived in the district since I was 6 years old, and I've been represented by David Schweikert since I was 10 years old. I'm 19 now, and throughout all of this time, he continues to turn his back on my generation and our ability to have a safe, livable future. He continues to choose to ignore the science of climate change and the climate crisis and the urgency it carries, and fails to translate empty smiles and empty words into actual plans and real action. I'm mad as hell because so many politicians in Arizona and across the country continue addressing the issue with special interests in mind, taking contributions of dirty money from the same fossil fuel and utility industries that got us into this mess, while other areas of the world, and even here in Arizona, continue suffering the disproportionate effects of the climate crisis. And while many people talk around the issue or pretend that the climate crisis is still far off and the issue that's not here yet, our marginalized communities of working class and the people of color in Arizona are still experiencing extreme heat, are still experiencing disproportionate health effects of air pollution. Our indigenous peoples around Arizona are facing the threats of environmental destruction, where we're seeing things at Oak Flat, where the world's largest copper mine is set to be built, where we're seeing down at the border where an atrocious monument to racism is being built over sacred Tatem lands and destroying Organ Pipe National Monument, along with other lands that are extremely valuable to biodiversity. But I trust Anita to take care of these issues and to fight for us in Congress, because Anita's only special interest is the constituents of this district, the people that look like you and me, our neighbors, our friends, the people that go to our schools, the people that live in our district, that live across all of Arizona and across the country, people that have faced issues like health, disastrous health issues. And Anita knows how to fight for these communities because she's lived through these experiences herself. And that is one of the most important parts of representing a district, is not just being a person that towers above the people, but being there alongside your people and being there and fighting and organizing your communities. The Arizona Youth Climate Coalition, as Nadia very kindly mentioned, is a statewide movement of middle school, high school, and college students, and we all stand firmly behind Anita Malik and support her to be the nominee for the Democratic Party and to unseat David Schweikert come this November, because we know there is too much at stake and too much threat facing our future to allow anybody else that isn't as prepared to take David Schweikert to flip this seat. And because we know that once Anita's elected, she will fight for us and she will fight for our generation in Congress, because she knows, and because she is a mother, she has a family, and she is not just fighting for others, but that of her kids as well, and your kids, your grandkids, and every generation to follow mine as well. As a young person, I am extremely fed up with the inaction, with people continuing to just play the politics of this issue, with the lack of urgency that people seem to carry themselves with. And this year in 2020, it needs to change. And that starts with electing Anita Malik come this November, and with winning this primary come this Tuesday, August 4th. I know who I am, and right now, I really need you guys to know who you are too. I'm a first-generation Mexican-American. I'm a first-generation college student. I'm the product of my parents' labor. Soy un Zapoteco del Villa Hidalgo y Yalala in Oaxaca, Mexico, and I'm a youth climate organizer. And I need you to show me who you are this November and on Tuesday with words, not silence, with advocacy, not fear, and with bravery over everything else. I need you to know who you are and show me with action. Are you somebody who's gonna fight the status quo and demand more for our generation, for your families, for your children, for every generation to come in Arizona after mine and after yours, and to fight to demand more for the most vulnerable among us? Or are you going to stand and allow for this crisis to continue building up into the effects that we're already seeing around Arizona and around the country? So this November, we need to have Anita Malik representing our district. And we need to have Anita Malik as our nominee, because I know and I trust that she will beat David Schweiker, and she will fight for me and for my generation in Congress. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, so much. Next up is another powerhouse in our community, John Ainlay. John is a former chair of LD23 Democrats. He is also the founding member of North Scottsdale Democrats, and he is a passionate Anita supporter. He told me to say that. John?
Thank you, Nadia. I'm not sure if you can see me or hear me, but hopefully you can. There we go. Okay, I remember the first time I met Anita. It was way back in 2017. It was her first visit to an LD23 Democrats meeting right after she entered the primary race against two already established candidates. And it's impossible in these few short minutes to share everything that I saw, felt, and heard in that initial encounter with Anita, but I distinctly remember thinking how much courage, confidence, and passion this woman must have, how strongly she must believe in herself and her values to enter that race. And when she sat down at our table and introduced herself, I remember immediately being struck by her authenticity and poise. And later that evening, when she spoke to the entire LD23 group, I remember I was so impressed by her charisma and how quickly she captivated the audience and held everybody's attention. Anita won me over that night, and she won over a lot of other people too. And in subsequent appearances and debates with the other candidates, she continued to win people over. When she entered the race, Anita was an underdog and relatively unknown, but she was smart, resourceful, a good organizer, and a compelling speaker. And despite the odds, she went on to build an amazing grassroots movement of loyal and passionate supporters that ultimately won her party's nomination in 2018 and brought her to within striking distance of unseating the Republican incumbent, devious David Schweiker. Now it's 2020, and Anita is back to finish the job she began in 2017. Again, as in 2017, she's had to fight through another primary battle, this time against three new Democratic rivals, one of which doesn't even live in the district and can't even vote for herself. But none of that has deterred Anita, because in 2020, she's just as courageous, just as passionate, and just as confident in herself and her beliefs as she was in 2017. And this is ultimately why I support her. Of course, as a progressive Democrat, I love Anita's platform and policy agenda, including especially her views on the environment, Medicare for all, her emphasis on social justice and economic reform. But policy positions, we all know this, are nothing unless the candidate has the courage, tenacity, and determination to fight for them. That's why, for me, it's always been about Anita's passion and commitment to her values, her progressive agenda, and the CD6 activists and voters who supported her in 2018. I know in my heart she won't abandon us. She won't let us down. And so do you. The same cannot be said for some of the other candidates. And this is why I firmly believe that Anita is, again, in 2020, just as she was in 2018, the best person to lead us forward in the fight to unseat David Schweikert. Thanks.
Thank you, John. We are so grateful for our next special guest, Roy Tatem. Roy is a civil rights leader in our community who fights for education equity, voting rights, and police reform to end police brutality. With a personal passion to empower communities and address social justice issues, Roy has remained active with several community and civic organizations and has been the voice of major change in Arizona. Roy?
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. I'm excited to be here with everyone, just sharing why I believe in Anita. As I look at, and as you look at her policy platform, I challenge everyone to go to AnitaForArizona.com and take a look at her policy points. If you've had a conversation with Anita, you will see probably some of your conversation reflected in her public policy. And I will say, as we've talked about, we've had some very tough conversations over the year, and I'm not new to this conversation with her. We've had a ton of great conversations, particularly around policing and police reform. And so when I look at her policy on criminal justice reform, I can see many of the conversations that we've had around policing, police brutality, use of lethal force, ending qualified immunity, and providing services to the community that have been victims of police brutality over the years. And so as we see America pretty much up in arms, raising their voices, saying that Black Lives Matter, saying that we need to end police brutality, no justice, no peace. Okay, in the wake of George Floyd, in the wake of Breonna Taylor, in the wake of Romaine Brisbane here, who was killed here in Phoenix, in the wake of so many others that have lost their lives as a result of police overreach and police violence, we need a voice, a fearless voice. Let me say that, a fearless voice like Anita Malik in U.S. Congress. And unfortunately, I will say I've encountered her opponent, and we didn't get a chance to have a dialogue about his positions on police brutality because he left before we could acquaint one another. That's my that is my exposure to the current person in the occupant of the seat. So I know for a fact that Anita is accessible to the public. Anita will give you her ear, and she's not going to shy away from the tough conversation. And so I just want everyone to understand that Anita is who she says she is. She's not putting on a show. She's not putting on airs. She's not pretending to be one way today and she's another way tomorrow. So every time I've seen Anita, I've seen extreme passion. I've seen intelligence. I've seen consistency. Every time I've heard her speak, every time we've encountered one another, and we've been able to have some tough conversations around the issues. And so I believe in Anita because she's not, her campaign is people over politics. Okay? People over politics. And that is not that. I don't believe everyone can say that. I don't believe everyone in Congress can say that they are truly putting people over politics. In the time of pandemic, in the time where people are truly being decimated, I mean, financially, health-wise, physically, and also mentally, she's a person that knows what it's like to struggle with a loved one dealing with a health condition. So I want someone like Anita in Congress because she's listening. I can look at her platform and see our conversations reflected in her platform. That says a lot to me. That tells me what I need to know. That tells me that Anita is a woman of her word. And I also know personally, I wouldn't even be a part of this if I did not believe in her ability to bring about change in the face, because I know what she's going to face in Congress. She's going to face pressure. She's going to face big money. She's going to face the lobbyists, the special interests. Okay, I know what she's going to face, and I know for a fact that Anita will be willing to stand strong with a firm backbone to say, hey, this is about people. This is about my constituents. This is about my community, not your special interests. And so this is the kind of person that we need to have in Congress, representing the interests of people over politics, especially now in 2020. Thank you all for allowing me to be a part of this and to share some brief comments.
Thank you, Roy. Now I want to welcome three fierce women of the Arizona legislature. Raquel Teran is a member of the Arizona House of Representatives, proudly representing LD 30, which includes Central West Phoenix and downtown Glendale, and is a part of the district. For the last 14 years, Raquel has been a vocal and active community advocate for civil, labor, immigrant, and women's reproductive rights. Athena Salman is the state representative for District 26 and House Democratic Whip. Her fierce advocacy on behalf of our community led the Arizona Republic to include her in its top 10 newsmakers to watch last year, and she was named the Phoenix New Times Best Politician in 2018. Jennifer Germain is a member of the House of Representatives for LD 18. Currently serves on the Government Committee, Election Reforms Committee, and the Military and Veterans Affairs Committee. She is the chair of the Investigative Committee for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. Take it away, ladies.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'll go ahead and take it away and then pass it over to these fierce leaders at our state legislature and our community. I'm really happy to be with the two of them, and I'm happy that the three of them are here to support Anita, who is the best candidate to go against David Schweikert. David Schweikert has been the perfect ally for Donald Trump. And in a district like Legislative District 30 that represents people whose median income is $29,000, but are the most resilient people, are the people that count with one another, but still have the challenges of facing the inequities of the economic inequities, the racial inequities, and then having representatives like David Schweikert added onto that, it does not help. We need people like Anita Malik who understand these inequities and are willing to fight for our communities. So thank you to everybody who is watching, because we are only 3 days away or 2 days away from election day, and we need everybody making phone calls. We need to make sure that everybody who still has a ballot makes a plan to go take it to the polling place. They cannot mail in their ballot, and we need to make sure that they cast their ballot for Anita Malik, because she will be able to go against David Schweikert, hold him accountable, and she is the most progressive candidate who will stand to her values and who will really bring change to our communities. It's not just about defeating David Schweikert, it's about change, and Anita can bring that change. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to pass it to our sister, Jennifer Germain from Legislative District 18, a true champion of our community.
Thank you so much, Raquel. And yes, we're here to support Anita. To my Indigenous brothers and sisters, to the Yaqui who live in Scottsdale, to Fort McDowell, Yavapai Nation, Salt River, Pima, Maricopa Indian community, you're all within the boundaries of Congressional District 6. You need a representative who absolutely understands tribal sovereignty and the complexities that come with the Indian health system. And that is Anita Malik. Anita Malik will fight for you in Congress, and she will meet with you, and she has gone with me into these communities to have long, deep discussions with community members about our missing and murdered Indigenous people. And she is going to be our true voice in Washington, D.C. And she's got my support. She had my support in 2018, and she is the best person to move forward in this race to beat David Schweikert. I'm going to pass it off to my sister, Athena Salman.
Thank you, Representative Germain. Thank you, Representative Tharon, as well. I couldn't agree more with both of my sisters. And listen, folks, the establishment is scared. And they are scared of progressives winning these Democratic primaries and taking out these Republican incumbents. And the idea that progressives can't win in districts that are traditionally held by conservatives goes against logic, goes against fact, goes against reality. We saw in the midterm election, we saw in 2018 with the blue wave, progressives like Anita all across the country taking out these Republican incumbents like David Schweikert, who have no affiliation or loyalty to the people, but to the corrupt interests, the wealthy and the billionaires that fund their campaigns. And we see people like Anita take them out. And the establishment is so scared of Anita because she unapologetically endorses Medicare for all, because she unapologetically endorses tackling the crisis of climate change and refuses to corrupt her campaign by fossil fuel money, because Anita is fully committed to overturning Citizens United and bringing forth a federal clean elections program. They are so scared that they literally they recruited a candidate who doesn't even live in the district to try and take out Anita. That's how much they're scared. And this campaign isn't just about Anita. What Anita did in 2018 when she beat the establishment Democrat and faced off, went toe-to-toe with David Schweikert, is she showed that money can't buy you everything. She showed that you can organize grassroots effort in Arizona Congressional District 6, a district that wasn't even on the map for the National Party, that wasn't even on the map prior to Anita coming in and really organizing the voice of the voters. And she showed you that by putting you first, the voters, the people of Congressional District 6, the congressional district that I grew up in, that I was raised in, the school districts that I flourished in, and Anita showed that we can have a representative who's of the people, by the people, for the people. And now we are in a presidential year where Democrats not only can keep the Congress, but can take the Senate as well as get the presidency. And you have to ask yourself, what kind of Democrat, what kind of representative, what kind of person do you want facing off with David Schweikert? One of the most corrupted politicians in Washington, D.C. And there's only one person in my mind who has that fight. There's only one person in my mind who has that record. There is only one person in my mind that has the people's agenda and will stay true to those values. And that is Anita Malik. That is why everyone who's watching, if you haven't already voted for Anita, you need to go fill out your ballot and take it to a polling place either tomorrow or Tuesday. And if you have already voted, you need to text 3 friends or call 3 family members who live in the district and make sure that they fill out their ballot right now for Anita Malik. Because again, she is the candidate who's of the people, by the people, for the people. She's the people's representative. And let's send Anita on our behalf to Washington, D.C.
Thank you, representatives. That was awesome. Before we move on to our next supporter, I'd like to ask everyone to please like and share this video so as many people as possible can see it. And thank you. All right, next up is the unstoppable and inspiring Kelly Fryer. Before Kelly ran for governor of Arizona, she was CEO of Arizona's oldest gender equity and racial justice organization and executive director of an organization that works to elect women to office. Kelly is a former minister and continues to advocate for equality for all Arizonans. Kelly?
Oh my gosh, it is amazing to be on this this event. The speakers today have just been amazing. James, it's so good to see you with the song in your heart and on your lips. And Brian, we haven't not worked together before, but oh my gosh, you kicked this off in just an amazing way. And it just is amazing to be here. Anita, the fact that you have been surrounded by such amazing activists and community leaders says so much about you. You know, the first time I heard Anita speak, when she ran a grassroots campaign for this office the first time, I knew she was the real deal. She is an entrepreneur. a communicator, a proud daughter of immigrants, a mom. I wasn't surprised when she won her primary, beating the candidate who raised the most money. I just want you to just sit with that for a minute. She beat the candidate who raised the most money. And then I watched her debate the guy who currently holds the seat, a guy whose voting record and ethical lapses are an embarrassment to every Arizonan with a conscience. And I watched her take him out when he tried to talk to her like she was a child. I don't know if you saw that debate. I was mesmerized watching this happen in real time. She called him out on it right there and then, and she stood her ground. And I thought, this is who we need in Washington. We need somebody who is both smart enough and brave enough to stand up to the bullies and the bozos who are running things right now. I wasn't surprised when she moved CD6 by 14 points. An absolute underdog without the support of the establishment, and she made CD6 viable for Democrats. But you know why I really love Anita? Because she puts people over politics. After I announced that I was running for governor in February of 2018, I got in my little Prius and I took off across Arizona, pledging to go places that statewide politicians don't usually go. And there were two things I heard more often than anything else as I found myself in rural communities and meeting with leaders of the tribal nations within Arizona. There are two things I heard more often than anything else. One, are you lost? Like, what are you doing here? But the second thing I heard was, don't forget about us. People in Arizona are sick and tired of leaders who have forgotten about the people that they have been elected to represent. Leaders who care more about big donors than doing the right thing. We are, as Brian said, mad as hell about being led by people who not only don't seem to care about the people of our state, but don't even see the people of our state. And I'm talking about people in the establishment, right? I'm talking about not just Republicans, but I'm talking about Democrats who we work for, we knock on doors for, we give our money to, and then they go to Washington or they go to Phoenix and they vote against our interests because it's what the big donors and the establishment is telling them to do, pressuring them to do. And we see the impact of having such terrible leaders. As Arizona is opened up too soon, putting health and livelihoods at risk. As the federal government has cut off aid in spite of the fact that so many people across this country are hurting. As people in Washington have made basic human rights like healthcare, migration, economic opportunity, education, partisan issues, rather than problems that we have to solve. We need leaders in Washington who care about people. And I think that's why we need Anita Malik representing CD6 and the state of Arizona. You have the power to make this happen, CD6. You have the ability to send Anita Malik to Washington to represent us. When COVID hit, Anita knew how hard things would get for people in CD6. She stopped spending energy and resources on fundraising and found ways to help families in need and called on her opponents to do the same thing. You know why? People over politics. Anita is the only candidate in this race who dares to say that we need health care for all, not just health insurance. You know why? People over politics. Anita is the only candidate who has made criminal justice reform a top campaign issue, even before establishment Democrats decided they better jump on the bandwagon. You know why? People over politics. And Anita is the only candidate on either side. Listen to this. She is the only candidate on either side in this race who can say that the majority, the vast majority of her donors have come from inside of CD6. In fact, according to opensecrets.org, most of the dollars that her main opponent in this primary race has raised, they haven't even come from inside the state of Arizona. You know why Anita has so much support from her neighbors, the folks who actually live in CD6? Because they know she puts people over politics. CD6, you have the power to make this happen. We all do. If you're on this rally with us, if you're in this rally with us right now, you know, vote. If you haven't already voted, make sure you vote. Make calls, donate. I just made a donation to Anita's campaign an hour ago. Talk to your friends and your neighbors. It is my absolute joy and honor and pleasure to introduce the next congressperson from CD6, Anita Malik.
Wow. Thank you so much, Kelly. Thank you, everybody. I don't even know after all this support what to say, but this is amazing. Thank you, Kelly. It's such an honor to be introduced by you, someone who really taught me and showed me through your campaign in 2018 the power of community, which is so important to what we've created here as well. And to all my friends and leaders, community leaders who have spoken today, I am so, so grateful for all of you for lending your voice to our efforts. And to all of you that are watching, we haven't been together. We've been apart, but we've been together in spirit, working so hard to continue what we started 3 years ago. And so I am so grateful for all of you. As we talk about how it is that we can make change, we have to always think about what are the problems? What are the gaps? It's those leaders that repeatedly, time after time, fail us. They fail us by not listening to our voice, by creating bad policy, like you've heard what Kelly has talked about, by being corrupt, which we know now David Schweikert has admitted that he is that. But really, for me, what this has always been about is the uncertainty. We have elected people to help us, to take the uncertainty out of our lives, but yet they've neglected that. Imagine the uncertainty and the complexity right now that is in our own community with educators, superintendents, school staff, parents trying to figure out what's the right thing to do for their community and their children, or everybody working so hard because our elected leaders couldn't give us a plan. They couldn't unify to figure this out and be operational and efficient and strong with the message. The uncertainty that we don't have safety, because guns are okay in our community, but a mask which can protect us is politicized and optional. The uncertainty in this country because of the color of your skin, you will not have your rights, you will not have health care. We must work together to break down the systemic racism that is in every aspect of life, and that is my commitment to you. The uncertainty in this country about climate change, because instead of looking forward to the future and protecting us, our elected leaders, David Schweikert is one of the most egregious on this, are climate science deniers, and they are funded by fossil fuel companies. I will move all fossil fuel subsidies, put them in renewable energies, and move us forward, putting a tax on carbon. That is my commitment as I get to Congress and be your Congresswoman, initially, fast, quickly. These are things that must be done because the uncertainty is too much. The uncertainty if, as a woman, I can make decisions about my own health care, about my own body. And there's the uncertainty about who you love. And if you choose to love who you love, they might strip your rights away and take them away. Your basic rights to live in this country and have opportunity. The uncertainty goes on and on and on, but I will tell you, it is the uncertainty of healthcare that I have fought consistently in this race, and I will continue to fight as your Congresswoman. Because no one in America should have to have a medical procedure or avoid having a medical procedure because the cost of healthcare is a question mark. That's an uncertainty we cannot afford. In this great country, that is a stain on America, that more than 2/3 of Americans are struggling with the burden of medical debt. I will ensure we make healthcare a right in this country. And we have to address the fact that the uncertainty in this district is also about corruption. Have we had a leader that is working in our best interests No, we've known that, and now we've proven it. And every piece of uncertainty that we've talked about comes down to the same thing. It comes down to the money in politics. Money has been given a voice in this country, and money, my friends, is not speech. And now money is affecting this race. This Democratic primary, outside money is pouring in to stop our movement, a movement that was built on principles. And we've stood tall on those principles from day one, as you've heard from everybody here today. It is important to me that we acknowledge what is happening, because our movement, our race, was never about just some of us, just one of us. It wasn't about big government versus small government, labels, money, power. It's always been about finding the better way, the more equitable way, the more compassionate way with smart policy that helps everyone. And again, it's about doing better, not for just us, not for just the neighbors that agree with us, because we know we have so many that don't. But we can make that unity come together and make it better for all of us. We have to stand up to this, and we have to acknowledge that the money is an issue. I will tell you that this race will always be about you and what you have done. Because as you've heard this so much today, and we didn't know what you guys were going to say, I love this, but you heard this. In 2018, we proved something. We proved that this movement meant more than that money and that outside voice. It was about people coming together to truly unite behind the idea of being better. And we understood that despite a catastrophic health event in my family, despite the party deciding that they weren't going to help us and they were going to put their resources in other parts of Arizona, this movement kept moving. It was strong, it was tough, and we made a historic showing, swinging this district nearly 15 points. That's because it was you. You did this. And we can't let people forget that. This is about our community. None of my primary opponents would be in this race today if it wasn't for what you did. You created this into a flippable seat. You put the Republicans on notice, and you made it so that the party has now already bought TV ads for October and November, even though we don't have a nominee, because they will support whoever it is because you made this happen. And that's what today is about, and that's what this election is about. I want you to know that whatever happens on Tuesday, that this movement is strong. And we won't stop fighting because the costs are too high. The risks are too high. But we also won't be quiet about the money that's been entering this race. In just the month of July, my three primary opponents combined have spent over $1 million just to stop our movement. In a time of COVID-19, when our fellow neighbors and our friends can't pay their bills, that's not what we want to see. We need to see service. Our movement has been about service this entire time, while they have focused on the money. We've made masks for our neighbors and delivered them to anyone in need. We've created a mutual aid project to connect neighbors that could help each other. I've been connecting so many people that just can't get their unemployment with their wonderful state reps, like the three that you just heard from today. We are about service, we are about compassion, and we'll continue that fight no matter what. But we won't be quiet. And I will tell you this, we will earn every vote until Tuesday. Let's do this. Let's do it together. Let's prove them wrong yet again. And I will guarantee you this, that a third time they will not question us when we say that money isn't everything. Let's do this. And I'm so, so grateful for all of you.
Speak it, sister. So now we are going to get every last vote. Our speakers are all going to make calls for Anita. We'll listen in for a bit and see if anyone gets a vote for Anita. But also, I wanted to give you information about how you can help today, tomorrow, and Tuesday. Please take a look at the slide.
I think we are going to wrap up because we know we went over time. We're going to kind of cue you out with the video, but we also wanted you to help. You see this on the screen, how you can make calls. If you want to make calls today, like Nadia said, that is the link. People are calling right now for the campaign. If you've made calls before, it's easy. If you haven't, please email us, and the email address is on the slide as well. If you want to help on election day, we have things that people are doing, and if you want to make calls tomorrow, let us know, because we change our lists often to make sure we're hitting the right voters. So we're going to cue this all out with the video. I'm going to put everybody back on the screen so you can see who's not everybody was able to stay, but I want to thank all of our speakers here today. Thank you, Nadia, for keeping us on time and on track and so organized. And Kelly is making calls. Let's listen in. Kelly's actually making calls for us right now.
I'm just calling to see if you have any questions about the campaign and to make sure that you have a plan to vote this Tuesday.
So these guys have all let me know that they're going to make calls, and I hope you can.
Yes, you do have a plan?
Thank you all for joining us today. We're going to end it with what we call
fantastic.
The video we call
I don't know that.
Which I think is very,
that's great. What do you love most about Anita?
This movement. Thank you.
Yeah, I just think she's amazing. I was really happy to support her in 2018, and
Despite the odds, despite a catastrophic health event in the middle of it all, we stood together and made history here in 2018. We built the foundation for change when no one thought it was possible. We proved we were tough enough. Now, life feels uncertain. We're under pressure, tired, scared, but I know us. We have the courage to fight the cowardice of Congressman David Schweikert, who stands with Donald Trump without ethics and for divisive and destructive policy. Together, they've misled us and risked our lives over and over again. This is not the time for political games. This is the fight for real leadership. And the fight is personal. While they've attacked our healthcare, my family, like millions of others, has paid the price. They've put corporate money above all else, and our democracy is at risk. I'm not fighting from afar. I'm not just talking about policies. I have lived this. And this is my home, the beautiful, diverse, and strong community of Arizona's 6th Congressional District. I won't give up on us. We will continue the fight to honor our stories and our struggles with the change that we deserve. Together, we are tough enough.
Will you support Anita Malik against David Schweikert in 2020?